When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty? Paralyzed? Dumbstruck?
You might have heard about Halo Online in the past, that it was a Russian PC port of Halo 3, or a resurrected piece of abandonware, retweaked and retooled to try to emulate Halo 3. Or maybe you've never even played Halo and just want to see what all the fuss is about. Well, I'm going to try to clear up a couple things to give this mod, / game, whatever, a proper review. Halo Online, or ElDewrito, is a free-to-play first-person shooter that takes place in the Halo franchise. It runs off the Halo 3 engine using many assets from Halo 3 along with Reach, Halo 4, and even Halo 2. However, this is not a Halo 3 port. There is no campaign, theater mode, proper matchmaking, or global ranking. So think of ElDewrito more of Halo 5 Forge PC more than Halo 3. But don't let that dissuade you. Years of hard work and dedication have resulted in ElDewrito having a gameplay perfectly copying Halo 3's and making a revamped Forge mode that could go toe-to-toe with even Halo 5's, which complements on what I believe is Halo's strongest feature in the first place, outside its multiplayer, its custom games and Forge. You might have heard about this game recently for another reason. That is why this review is a bit late. ElDewrito has come under some fire from Microsoft, however there is still a lot of misinformation about what's happening, so before I continue with the review, let's get some stuff straight. Some of the misconceptions are, number 1, Halo Online is not shutting down. There was not even a DMCA issued either. So far, Microsoft has seized only the core files of Halo Online and not ElDewrito itself. So if you want to download the game now, it's not linked officially. However, I will say Google is pretty good at finding things. The mod itself is still available to download publicly on the subreddit though. So think of the whole situation like another popular mod, Project M, where the ISO is separate from the mod. Also similar to Project M, Microsoft has asked ElDewrito devs to halt development on the mod until further notice. Thankfully, this currently released version of ElDewrito is damn near perfect, but we'll get to that later. Microsoft also can't take down the servers since they're all peer-to-peer, and they have yet to take down the dedicated servers, so nothing has changed in that department. Lastly, I want to mention that contrary to a lot of rumors, 343 has nothing to do with these takedowns. In fact, 343 seems very supportive of ElDewrito. Microsoft is simply protecting its IP. If they didn't, because of the current copyright law, they could lose the entire IP. It appears Microsoft has only done the bare minimum to ensure the Halo IP is safe, but it's still shitty overall. Anyway, let's get to the actual review. So how does the game perform? Well, the game was developed for mid to low tier PCs. However, I've run this game on 2 different computers, my desktop and my laptop. Both are running NVIDIA cards though. In my experience, the desktop version of course runs the best. I have a 1070 in it. It can easily display max settings at 2K resolution. My laptop, however, because of this update, has received pretty good performance overall compared to other patches of this game. I'm able to run on medium and hit 60 frames with a 940M graphics card. So, yeah. As stated before, the game can scale up to 4K, and can run a solid 60. However, because of the engine, it's only limited to 60. Also, it's not restricted to a 16:9 ratio, so if you have an ultra-wide monitor, it's supported. Normal PC settings include an FOV slider, as well as rebindable keys, as well as the ability to play with the controller, and have some competitive advantages due to still having aim assist. So don't feel pressured about using a mouse and keyboard if you don't want to. Another cool thing with the controllers is they have already presets made from older games from Halo 3, 4, and Reach. so you don't have to go and rebind everything. However, that's still an option. You can also adjust your weapon placement on screen thanks to a few new settings in this update. So if you're not liking where the weapon is, or you want to play Doom, you can do that. Another feature added with this update is Discord integration. This allows you to invite people from Discord into your lobbies. This saves your friends a lot of hassle navigating the server browser, which isn't bad, it's just kind of hard to find who you're looking for most of the time. Gameplay ElDewrito carries over many features from Halo 3. The entire original arsenal from Halo 3 is intact with some added weapons like the DMR from Halo Reach. But you might see some of these weapons floating around. Now these weapons are a little complicated to explain. You see, Halo Online was meant to be a free-to-play game, with guns you could rent for a period of time, giving you a higher damage, added range, faster fire rate, or different skins. Essentially, this is going to be a pay-to-win game before it got shut down. However, these guns still remain in the game and usually don't appear unless you're in a Fiesta match. Most of these guns are unfinished, clunky, and not very good to use, so it's not a huge loss. Plus, all of them are just stronger variants of pre-existing base weapons. Weapons and movements have also been retuned in the most recent update to match Halo 3's, which is nice. It also includes Halo 3's infamous deployable equipment. These were added in the most recent update, and personally, I've never been a huge fan of the equipment. They tend to slow down the game and usually were either annoying and unhelpful, or just a free kill in combat. And that's still the case here, really. However, I do appreciate the effort on porting them over. There's also some returning abilities. These include active camo and overshield. There are also things like vehicle cloaking, toggleable features like the visor ability and flashlight from ODST, and the hologram module from Reach. Dual wielding also makes its return from Halo 3, and all of Halo 3's vehicles, including the Elephant, are intact. As I mentioned, Halo Online uses many assets from Halo 3, including many of its maps. These include Narrows, High Ground, Pit, Valhalla, Guardian, Standoff, Last Resort, and Sandtrap. Halo Online also has some reimaginings of former maps like Diving Back, which is a desert version of Avalanche, as well as Icebox, which is just a winter version of Turf in Halo 2. There are also two original Never Before Seen maps, those being Edge and Reactor. ElDewrito also includes the original game mode editor with some new tweaks to give you the chance to create new game modes or remake old classics. There's also one last feature I haven't mentioned yet, and that's Sprint and Assassinations. Now, this is a controversial topic among Halo fans, but in ElDewrito, it's toggleable per server. This wasn't the case for the original game though. However, I'm glad they allowed the ability to pick and choose. Most of the time, you won't find them active on servers, considering most people like to play the pure way of Halo 3. ElDewrito also has a plethora of customization options, starting off with the armor. The old armor that was seen in the earlier versions of basically copying Halo 4's is now gone and replaced with the original Halo 3 armors. This includes the Katana, Flaming Helmet, and Hayabusa armor. You also can use the color wheel to select what color armor you want, as well as visor color and lights. The emblem editor returns with emblems not from just Halo 3 but also Reach and I believe Halo 4, and the clan tag. For an added level of customization, you can download the mod manager on the subreddit and download the Halo 3 weapon models, considering that most of the weapons in Halo Online use the Halo 4 variants, and no offense to Halo 4, they're pretty ugly. Now for the bread and butter, multiplayer. Now for the most part, ElDewrito multiplayer is handled through the server browser, where you can join and play games at will. Most of these servers will be peer-to-peer, however. ElDewrito does offer a few dedicated servers, and you can play on those, and some of them will even keep track of your stats. You can also host your own lobbies where people can join. Hosting is also now super easy with this update due to it now automatically port forwarding for you. However, I did have some trouble hosting my own servers, and I actually had to go in and port forward them again. But this is the first time I'm able to actually host on my router, so that's super nice. You can also technically do split screen. I won't talk about it much here in great detail, but there are guides all over the subreddit that will teach you how to do it. I actually got to try it out recently, and it does work pretty well. In the hosting tab, you can choose how many people you want in your server, along with how many teams you want. So this is the return of the multi-team variant. The max amount of people is around 16 people, and if you want to host Forge, it's 4 people. Oh yeah, Forge. We haven't talked about Forge yet. It's like the biggest part of this update. Let me just start off and say, I think Forge is probably the most important aspect of Halo in its longevity. And ever since Halo 3, each game has made strides to improve it even more and make it more advanced. What the ElDewrito team has done is essentially create probably the best version of Forge out right now that could go toe-to-toe with Halo 5, a AAA game, and give it a run for its money. Jumping into Forge, you'll notice a lot of similarities to the original Halo 3 Forge, from the UI to the way objects behave. However, there are a lot of new features from the newer titles. This includes new Forge materials that resemble shapes like rectangles, triangles, or cylinders. These materials can also be combined together to make prefabs, so if you're doing a more complex map and don't want to recreate the same thing over and over again, just make a couple of prefabs and bam! There we go. A welcome feature from the newer games is the ability to make objects phasable, which means you can freely place objects in the air or put it through other objects. So for anyone who made maps in Halo 3 will know the struggle to make objects stay still or float in the air is a nightmare. This is a welcome relief. A huge thing they add are the object properties. This changes the textures of an object, which I believe is the first for the entire series. But I don't believe it's ever been this advanced or robust. This includes around 120 textures and a solid color wheel, which brings so much more variety to making maps. When I used Forge in Halo 3 and Rage, it got kind of annoying using the same Forerunner steel everywhere, or shipping containers and sandstone. In the textures tab as well, there's also textures that makes things invisible and glass. Invisible barriers come really handy when you're trying to make a more contained version of the map, or, what I did, make it so you can walk in water. You can even add properties to certain blocks to make bullets and grenades pass through them, to really give the illusion of glass. There's also the screen effects, which have a huge customization feature from them. This is different from the older ones where they kind of looked ugly and didn't really serve much purpose in making your map purple. In this, you can do things from making only certain sections of the map different colors, or changing the saturation, or brightness, or hue, or even just making it night. This adds so much more variety to making maps, especially infection maps. It gives you advantages like using a flashlight and hiding in corners, or using light sources now and actually making like a place to hide under. Speaking of lights, they also come with a color wheel, so you're not restricted just to a couple of colors. You now have every color under the rainbow. Another layer of added customization is the skybox. You can change it on any map now and replace it with any of the pre-existing skyboxes. This adds a lot of variety and different tone to your maps. You can also add vehicles to any map you want with no restriction, which means you can put 100 elephants in Guardian and no one will really yell at you. You can also use magnets in the game, which is a feature introduced in Halo 4. This allows you to build maps with preciseness. This is one of the few things I really liked about the newer Halos and their forges, and since its introduction to this game, it saved me so much time making maps. There's also the added benefit of being on PC, which increases the object and build limit substantially, allowing you to make more impressive maps. However, the object limit is still there, and even though it's a lot larger, I still have ended up hitting the limit multiple times. Now I think this has to do more with the actual engine itself than the game by handling all the objects, but don't quote me on that. There's also the option to build bounds. This is a really cool new feature that allows you to disable the kill barrier and the push barrier on every map, which allows you to add around like 4 times the amount of space to your map. This gives the ability for new game modes and maps to be realized, and is something completely unique to ElDewrito. It allows people to forge where no other person has forged before. One of the new wacky things they've added to the update is the size trait. Now, this has been introduced with mods in older Halos. However, with this, the physics scale as well. If you're tiny, for example, it won't feel any different from playing normal sized. Or when you're big, the game gives you a perk of walking over people and cars and crushing them. This introduces the potential for tons of new game modes. I've seen a bunch pop up so far. It's only been out for a week or two. Overall, this Forge is what I believe will give ElDewrito its lasting appeal for months to years to come, and highlights one of the most magical parts about Halo for me. Spending hours in the Forge and in custom lobbies making various maps and game modes. I can't tell you the amount of time I've spent in various infection modes, Speed Halo, Duck Hunt, Sacrifice, and much, much more. I've been following ElDewrito since its inception back in 2015. It's been an amazing experience watching this game develop into basically a full-fledged product. There's only one problem: player count. Now, before the release of the latest update, the player count sat around 60 to 70 players. Now, it was possible to find people to play with, but hopefully this update inspires people to stick around a bit longer, considering it has fixed most of the issues people had with previous builds of the game. And as of this week, ElDewrito sits at a healthy player base of 5,000 people, with an even higher player count of 8,000. My concern is for people picking up this game in a year, and how hard it might be to find a game mode you want to play, because the game might have a fraction of players then. However, it also highlights one of Halo's greatest strengths, that being its community. This game has fostered a super niche group that reminds you of the overall community of older Halos gone by, with things like a pretty active Forge base with constantly uploaded maps and game modes, as well as a fairly active mod base. Other than that, ElDewrito delivers a fun, nostalgic experience with some minor quirks that reminds you of what made Halo so great in the first place, and made by some of the most passionate people in the entire community, and played by them too.